Hang on, Jerry. 5, 4, 3. I'll do an intro. Hello to our friends that are gathered. My name is Jim Taylor, Oregon Department of Education. This is a conversation with Jerry Peacock around YouScience implementation called Process, Not Event, a rich and robust implementation of YouScience. Heard Jerry speak at the CTE State Convention in April, and we were inspired to ask him to come talk today about the paradigm shift. And so as you are entering the room, if you could join in the document that is shared in the chat, entering in your contact information, we'd appreciate it. We'll use that as our way to let people know who's in the room. In the document you have access to, there's a link to the Career Exploration Professional Learning Community Running Notes. That's a year-long running dialogue that we've been having around YouScience, around career exploration. There's a great list of resources available to folks there. I will be capturing notes as folks are speaking today. I encourage you to add things in as you see, hear, and feel them. And you could populate in the chat or in the document questions that you have of Jerry or of others. So we acknowledge that people are coming at this with a lot of different experiences and information. So the conversation today is about implementation of YouScience, how to do so in a rich and robust manner, make it a process, not an event. If you have questions around how to gain access to the YouScience platform for your school, your district, your region, we'll put my email on the document. Please reach out to me separately or to Jerica McMahon at YouScience, and we will work with you on that. I will bring to your attention, there's 3 key dates coming up that are important. The first being June 15th to have a readiness form into YouScience. They will then communicate to ODE. ODE, YouScience, and High Desert will work collaboratively to make sure that all the schools who have expressed an interest in 2 years of funding then have their implementation plan in by August 25th. That plan will spell out your spin up, kickoff, rollout of YouScience. Brain games must be registered with some portion or all of your students by September 30 of 2022. Those 3 things complete, and you have 2 years of funding from ODE of the YouScience platform through September of 2024. So once more, June 15th, readiness form. Thank you, Amy, for that enthusiasm. We appreciate it. June 15th, readiness form into YouScience. August 25th, implementation form into High Desert and ODE. September 30th, some subset or all of your students in the brain games system of YouScience, 2 years of funding. With that, I'm going to stop for just a very, very fast question answer if anybody has any quick questions. But our main goal today is to hear from Jerry Peacock and from you all about rich and robust implementation of YouScience. So I'm going to do my 10-second middle school pause.
Okay, Jim. Kevin
Yes.
here.
Hey,
Are
Kevin.
you going to put those timelines in the document there?
You betcha. I'll put them in the document. They're also in the link down below to the running notes.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right. You're welcome. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
You in the closet, Kevin?
Well, no, I'm up in my wife's sewing room
No.
where our computer is. I just got home from work and ran up here, so I didn't have to drive home after the meeting.
I'm messing with
No,
you.
I'm not in the
Kevin's
closet.
one of my county ambassadors, just for the record. So.
And I also
So-
see with the folks on the screen that there's a lot of people that are representing larger groups. So thank you for joining us. And if you ever need us to reach out or present, just give myself or Jerica a holler and we'll be there to help you. So Jerry, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Is Jerica here? I didn't see.
She's supposed to be, and hopefully she'll pop in pretty soon. All right. Without further ado, may I introduce Jerry Peacock from Malheur ESD.
Well, thank you all for being here. Many of you know me, and perhaps you heard me start to speak a little bit at the ACTE over in Seaside. Those who don't know me, I'll give you a little bit about my background and what actually got me involved with the YouScience program. I was the principal at Baker High School for over 20 years. And then I had the opportunity to start BTI, Baker Technical Institute, which I ran for 3 years. I also was a principal of the Innovative High School in Baker for 3 years and was an assistant principal, and an elementary principal for 8 years. So I've been a school administrator for a long time. But really what got me interested in the YouScience piece was that as a high school principal, we have the opportunity to interact with young people, and we determine from our interactions that they don't really always know what it is they want to do. You know, they think they do, they come in, they're bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, they're excited about being a vet right up until the point they go visit the veterinarian and realize that they don't like the sight of blood, or they don't like doing things to animals that you have to do as a vet. So, you know, I got to see that over and over and over. And what really began to resonate with me, and I sat back and I thought about it, and I've watched it for years, is what did the armed services know that we didn't know? They come in every year and do this thing called an ASVAB. And from that, they begin to select kids based on certain aptitudes that might be eligible to go into their nuclear sub-training or their avionics training or their electronics or whatever the case might be, but they're looking for a certain aptitude to be able to perform certain skills. And they're willing to invest in that. And they're willing to invest handsomely because those schools are not cheap. As I watched that, I kept thinking, wow, what can we learn from that? But there really wasn't a tool around that I could play with outside the ASVAB because I wanted to do something a little different with that. So I started looking around. I'm currently the regional coordinator for CTE for 6 counties in Eastern Oregon. So I retired. I thought I had retired from education after 40 years, and the ESD superintendent thought differently. And so he talked me into coming to the ESD, be a career technical ed regional coordinator. Taking that experience and experiences that I've had in school was a good opportunity to start looking at how can we change the current, what I would call paradigm in education. And that is, we seem to base our students' progress through the system based on their interest. While that has some effect and can be positive, the real issue there is kids don't know what they don't know. And they typically are led in a direction by the direction their parents think they should go. Well, you should be this and you should be that. The other thing that we notice in our young people is that there's an exposure gap. I worked with a lot of rural Oregon schools. 23 districts is where I work. They're all rural. They're not exposed to some of the things that you see young people exposed to in the other schools. So long story short, I happened upon YouScience, I think 2 years ago, in trying to get something started in schools during COVID was a real treat. I mean, timing couldn't have been worse. But, you know, in Eastern Oregon, the advantage we have and the advantage I have, I think, is that we have relationships with our administrators. And so I had an opportunity to go into my schools and talk to 31 administrators. At 30, even though I work in 23 schools, I also have middle schools in the region. So I had the opportunity to visit with 31 administrators and explain to them what can we do with a focus on aptitude in addition to interest, but let's make it inclusive. What we know is that 27% of our college grads, 27% of our college grads, we understand go into the field that their degree pertains to. That tells me 73% of our kids who graduate from college don't go into those fields. There seems to be a disconnect. And so when you start sharing data with administrators and talking about possibilities and creating relationships and relevance in your school, how does aptitude contribute to that? And so I had 31 different conversations. I've met face-to-face with all of my administrators. Even with COVID going on, there were bits in time you could get in and get out, and you know, the guerrilla impact, get in and get out. And so you would have those conversations, and it was really hard for them to say no, because when you explain it all, as I'm explaining it to you, it makes good sense. Why would you say no? The problem is, once you leave, it's easier to say no and nothing happens. And so we worked with YouScience. And the first step that we did the first year out was we developed school ambassadors. The school ambassador was to get some training and then implement YouScience with 8th grade and 10th grade. Those were the 2 grades we focused on. And there's some logic to that if you really want to know what that is. But what we know about the aptitude testing is that they test 5 different aptitudes at the 8th grade level, along with an interest inventory. Nothing changes significantly in terms of aptitude by the time they get to the 10th grade, but they test 4 more aptitudes. They test 9, plus an interest inventory, plus a personality inventory. And I think it goes without saying, we know that students typically mature and grow quite a bit from 8th grade to 10th grade. And so we see some of that change in interest predominantly. But what became very evident after the first year is of the 31 schools that I went in and talked to, 16 of them implemented it. 16. Of those 16, 6 did it with fidelity. And what I mean by fidelity is they connected it to career exploration, and they connected it to some things that were relevant for kids, and looked at possibility of how they could expand. That wasn't a very good number, but at the same time, it did not frustrate me given COVID and the fact that they had a lot on their plate. And really what I was trying to do the first year is just get my foot in the door. This year, in my Perkins Reserve budget, I put money in there for what I called county ambassadors. So I have 6 counties. Each of my county has an ambassador that subcontracts with me through the grant to work with the school ambassador. So the school ambassador is interfacing with the county ambassador. Most of my county ambassadors are retired, or they're all educators of some sort, and 2 are on other assignments within their ESDs, but 4 of my ambassadors were educators. What I will tell you, we are far from where we need to be, but we're making steps. Part of what you will discover in this whole process is that your passion does not necessarily translate to everyone else's passion. And so you got to find those kind of people who can really promote that and have some creativity and innovativeness about them to really make sure that it gets implemented properly. And so we will do some things differently next year to really focus on trying to get that, connect the dots. One of the things that I really want to point out is that the problem you run into is with people who tell you they're going to do something, and we all know this, is that they do it and they check it off their list. It's just an event to them. It's not part of a bigger process. And so what I really want to focus on here in the next few minutes, and we'll see some videos and some of that, assuming I can get them up there for you. But what I'll tell you, what I have discovered in this profession is anything that is an event and an event only, it serves very little purpose in helping move the system, and it does not change things significantly. So what I'm about to go over and mention to you is that if you're looking at implementing YouScience, you need to make sure it's part of a long-range process and not just another event to try to get people to do things because it's a good idea. And so what happens, there are several things you're going to discover. Middle schools in this area, I can't speak for you, are ill prepared to deal with career exploration. Funding has to be used in your districts to support middle school exploration. And some of you may have some good programs in that regard, but many of them, particularly in Eastern Oregon, does not have that. And so we have to figure out how to use some of our Perkins dollars, some of our SIA dollars, and some of our HSS dollars because you can spend 15%, I believe, of HSS in that area. So that's the first thing you're going to discover. But at the high school level, what happens is, and I'm seeing this over and over, we give the test. My county ambassadors come in, they work with the school ambassadors, they give the assessment, and now what? Because many of your schools don't have programs that those young people can explore. And so I think what I want to do, it might be a time to show you one film that we've got from the middle school in Vail. So Zach Knapp is the teacher and he's working with young people. So what I want to show you is how you can get started at the 8th grade level. Then we'll talk about some things that are going on over at the high school level. And then I'm going to give you some ideas of how to connect the dots and create some relevance and make it a process versus an event. So if I can do this, this is really going to be a challenge for me, but we'll see. Wow, did it?
We see your screen.
You see it?
Yeah.
You see the video?
We see a video.
Okay, I'm done. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
If you
is my quick and simple way to try to help kids through this that I've come up with for my classes, because I have a lot of kids to go through. So if this is useful to you, then rock on. So kids come in after they finish, it tells them their top talents or whatever. We focus more on the wheel than the top 2 because I noticed that sometimes maybe the top 3 are similar in size. So I have the kids look at the whole wheel. They can click on each of these obviously and see what it means for them. And then they focus on these 3 things down here, which is the type of work that they might be interested in. And then of course there's the career matches. So in the career matches, you have these top 3 here, which are going to be critical for us in a second here when I show you what I have the kids do. And then these 3 interests right here. And so what I have the kids do is I'm really challenging them right now to go through each of these top 3 and really, really explore all of the different careers. So this is what kids see when they click on different things. And then of course you can come in here and kind of look at all that fun information. So what I challenge the kids a whole lot to do is to really dial in on each of these 3. Oh, come on, go back. Is to really dial in on each of these 3 here and these 3 here. And from each of those, choose one job. Okay. So they're going to choose one job and then we're going to boil it down in the presentation that I'm going to have them build. So this is the file that I share with them. Okay. So they start by filling in their name, then pulling the information directly from that wheel. They tell me about their top 3 talents. Okay. Their top 2 or 3, whatever, depending on what's going on there. Then they go to the bottom of that page and they pull those top 3. I should probably change that to types of work instead of job categories. So this is literally like they just take those 3 little, I think it was a hexagon at the bottom, they type them into here, and then they add that information into the bubbles there. Then on their next slide, it tells them, okay, we're going to look at your jobs based on aptitude. So remember over here, we had aptitudes and interest. So I separate those 2 in the slideshow. Okay, so they come into here, they tell me basically what their 3 aptitudes were, and then they pick their one job from each of those 3 things and give me some basic information, like super basic. Then they dive into each one of them in more detail. So give me some information on the first one, the second one, and the third one. Okay, now we go to the interests. So we would switch over here, show me the interest. Now these are going to be their 3 categories. In each of these, they would pick one job. So they come here, 1, 2, 3, job, 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 fill it out. Then more information, more information, more information. Oops, I think I went back to, oh, that should have been down here. Sorry. So there, same thing, boom, interests, right? Okay, then, so now they have 6 jobs basically that they've dove into really heavily. Okay, I challenge them to take those 6 and narrow it down to 2. Okay, so what are the 2 after exploring this list that are most interesting to you? And so they'll take that information and they'll say, okay, this is job number 1, this is job number 2, this is why I chose it, here's some potential benefits for this job for me. And then here's what I really like. Once they have it narrowed down to this focus, now we can take those individual jobs and really dial in what things are available to them that could help them be more prepared or more explore that job. So here in our district, we have middle school CTE modules. So I challenge them to think of 3 CTE modules that would kind of align to whatever that job was. Same thing with high school classes, high school activities. So, you know, being in the FFA or being on the science club or being on a sports team, does that relate to your job that you have indicated here for your first job choice? And then I also add in for them other opportunities. And the thing that I tell them here is like, there are experiences in your life that are not tied to education, but might tie to this job. So if this job is a ranch manager and you can get a summer job working on a ranch, that would be another opportunity. If you have a job here that's like a marine biologist and your family's going on a vacation to the Oregon coast and you can go visit the marine center there in Seaside and see all that kind of stuff, that's another opportunity. So we kind of talk about those kinds of things. So we get them thinking about how these kinds of decisions all relate to the jobs. So do that for job 1, job number 2. And then I like to kind of challenge them to really analyze, like, how do you feel about these jobs now that you've gone through this? Okay, is this job a good fit for you? So I tell them pretty point blank that this is not about jobs that they want or that they think they want to do. This is about the jobs that YouScience is telling them might be a good fit for them. And then what did they think of that? Okay, and they get the option for me to be kind of, this is a good thing or this is a bad thing. This was a good fit for me. This was not a good fit for me. And then they have to tell me why. And then finally, on the last slide, I have them kind of analyze, like, are these actual jobs that they would consider? Are there other jobs that you would be more interested in? Because I have a lot of kids that are like, well, what I really want to do wasn't included in there. Okay, well, this is their chance to kind of say, well, I might be more interested in something else. And then I asked them just kind of how they thought the YouScience program went. So that's kind of how I'm approaching it. I don't know if that's useful for anybody else, but if it is, I'm going to copy this slideshow and make it available so that you guys can make a copy of it and share it with your kids, change the slides around if you want to. I just took a basic Google template and turned it into this. So anyway, if that's useful, enjoy.
So Jerry, as you come back on there, I'm going to encourage folks throw those questions in the chat for us. I'm populating the document with your questions, and for people that have arrived maybe while that video was showing, there is a link in the chat to a note-taking document for today. And please throw your questions in the chat or in that document for me.
Okay. Can you see me now?
You could still hit stop share if you want to for a little bit.
Well, if it came up that I could do that.
Scroll your cursor to the very top of your screen, and it should pop up a option bar.
No, it's not doing that.
Nope. Let's see.
I hit the camera down at the bottom, but it's not doing anything. So.
Okay.
Anyway, you can hear me though.
Yes, we can hear you.
What can I do to stop share?
Do you need to hit escape possibly? Click in the center of your blue screen and then hit the escape button. That might.
Oh yeah, that's going to do it for me, I'm sure.
Just run away.
Yeah. Well.
Do you have another video to share here in a bit?
Yeah, no, I'm not going to share another video. I think, but I want to go back and go over some real basics of the whole process. What I would tell you is if you do nothing else, you test your staff. So you should be, I'm back home now, aren't I?
Yep, you're good to go. It's all you.
You should test your staff first. Here's what we all know. If you have ownership in a vision, it sells. And if young people can talk to the adults or the teachers and staff in that building, that's going to make all the difference in the world. And I think those schools who have got their teachers to buy into the test, the assessment, have been the most successful. So that's what I would tell you, bar none, make sure that happens first. Get your staff to get involved with that. And that way they can have that common conversation with people. One of the things too that I will tell you when you get to this, let's connect some more dots. As a high school principal, I'm just going to lay some things out there that I recognize the systems have. And every system's different. One of the things that I know that we have in our educational programs is we have a lot of drip in the schedule. And we need to come to grips with that. What I call drip are those things that really add little to no educational value to a young person's schedule and or career exploration. And that could be taking their third PE class or taking a second TA class or a TA class or a home release or study hall or whatever it is that gets them out of a course that could be part of a connected pathway. And so one of the things we have to do in order to make this relevant and effective in your school relevant is you have to really study your master schedule to determine what kind of drip you have in that so you can keep kids focused on a pathway. And so that's one of the things that I know when we were at Baker High School, we took a look at all of our courses and made sure that every course that we offered fit into some particular pathway. And we did not allow students to take an abundance of those drip courses, and you couldn't have home release. And we didn't have study hall to begin with. So we tried to create as much relevance as we could within our programs that kept our young people focused on some outcomes, some career outcomes. So those are some things that you may want to think about. One of the things we run into in small schools and even large schools, let's just say we go ahead and test our young people, we test our students, and we find out that we've got X number that qualify for have an aptitude in health, medical field. We got some that qualify for engineering. We got some in welding, some in cosmetology, whatever the case might be. And the first response you're going to get from your administration, we don't offer that. We know from COVID, we can offer a whole lot more stuff than what we used to think we could. We know it's available. One of the things that I have used when I was at the innovative high school, because those students did not want to go back to the high school environment, that I found to be very effective. And one of the things that I offer in this region is for kids to have the opportunity to explore in a program called E-Dynamic Learning. Buzz Reasoner is on the call here today, and Buzz is the representative I've worked with for several years. And so E-Dynamic offers over 200 CTE courses, 3 complete pathways. So if I've got a school that doesn't have a pathway in health, E-Dynamic does offer a pathway, including courses in anatomy and phys and medical term and EMT and sports medicine, et cetera, et cetera. And they also have a career exploration program for middle schoolers. And so the reason I mention that is that there are some solutions out there. And Buzz can give you his email address. He can talk to you about some of the things that he can do in that regard. I'm going to move this out of the way. I thought I might pull up something here that might show you a little, some of what we've used in that's made it very worthwhile for us. So I'm going to put this up. I'm going to attempt to put that up. We've been down this road before. So if you look at this, this is part of the middle school library. Can you all see that? This is, if you look at that, that's a plethora of coursework there. So when schools say, well, we don't have anything that we can do to support career exploration, there it is for some of the middle schools. And Buzz can certainly talk more to that. And like I said, he can give you his contact information. And there are many, many, many more high school courses. And that's what I have offered to schools as that next step. When they say, well, yeah, we've got this, we can find out what a student's good in, but so what? We can't offer that, particularly in schools. I have 23 schools, school districts. All 23 have agriculture, for example. 14 of those school districts, that's all they have. So when you test your students and you find out they've got all these other interests and aptitudes in other areas, it's easy for the administrator to say, we can't offer them anything in that area. Well, yeah, you can. I don't let them off the hook that easily. So I use the EDL as one of those areas, and I even help fund it. But with so much money out there in certain areas with SIA, high school success, this, that, and the other, there's a way that you can fund those kinds of things. And again, Buzz will give you all that kind of information if you're interested in talking to him. David goes by Buzz, but David, you want to make a comment on anything that I just mentioned, or feel free to do that.
Yeah, sure. We've David, Buzz, whatever you want to call me, I go by either. I put in our full course catalog in there. I think the biggest piece is that we're talking about digital curriculum, online learning. Just to be rest assured, our course content has a lot of hands-on components. So we're not the typical, drill and kill, here's a video, multiple choice. We have students that actually go out, do experiments, in dirt, if it's in agriculture or something like that, or if it's cybersecurity and things like that, the students are going to be actually working in programs that pros use. And we're really trying to make sure that we bring the students to a point where they can earn industry certifications as well. So pretty excited. We have some early adopter schools that have some students that are testing right now for CompTIA certifications, and some real meaningful certifications that are going to get them a good paying job out of high school.
Thanks, Buzz.
Oh, and I think if you're looking for contact information, I put it in the Google Doc too. So if you want to shoot me an email, happy to talk.
One of the other things that we're going to expand and use in this region is going to be Oregon Connections. And so if you're not familiar with Oregon Connections, there's a license that's attached to that as well. And I know that in our area, it's the STEM folks that are involved with that. They're helping purchase that. GoSTEM is helping it in our area, but that's a collection of businesses and industry folks who are really buying into the career exploration, understanding part of education, and they belong to that program. And you can have them speak to you in workshop format. They have videos that they prepare about the day in the life of maybe a power line operator, whatever all those things are, and really can be a terrific resource for middle schoolers and high schoolers. It's like bringing a career fair into your building. But there's some licensing that's involved with that. We're just now really getting into looking more at that to see if we can get our teachers licensed to be able to use that to, again, help support career exploration. One of the things that I want to also tell you about when you're trying to connect your dots, is don't forget this thing that's called career connected learning, CCL. That is a big part of where we're going. And when you talk about what's going on out here now with integrated guidance, that's a big part of that as well. So career connected learning, to put in simple terms, is awareness, particularly at the elementary level, exploration, which is what YouScience, we're talking about with YouScience, and connecting that talent, that skill in an exploratory way, preparation. The one thing you have to remember is when kids go from 8th grade to 9th grade, they're required to do an ed plan. Wouldn't it be nice if that ed plan had some relevance and talked about what their talents are, instead of a young person trying to make that ed plan on what they think they want to do? Don't forget the data I shared earlier, 73% don't go into the field that their diploma pertains to, or their degree rather pertains to. And so you've got that preparation piece is really the first 2-3 years of high school. They've taken some coursework, they find out they're an engineer. One of the biggest battles I had with kids at the high school level, by the time they became seniors, they didn't want to take any more math. Well, if I want to be an engineer, it might not be a bad idea to take some more math. I had young people who would claim up and down, I'm going to go into the medical profession, and dodged every chemistry course they could. Or they dodged every advanced bio course. And yet that's where they're going to go. So it's about that preparation piece. And so the last piece of that is the training. For one of the, if you really think outside the box, most of us in education went through a teacher prep program our last semester in college. It would be interesting to find out the number of educators who at the end of that experience said, no, thank you. They just spent 4 years in preparation and got into training at the end of that opportunity and bailed. What are we learning from that? Maybe we need to take that senior year of high school second semester, and we've got all this preparation time that these young people have been looking at in their career exploration relative to their talents and skills. Maybe we need to immerse them in an internship to decide if they really want to go into that profession, and at least expose it to them in a very guarded timeline, as opposed to sending them out there. I can't tell you the number of young people that have come back to me from college after first semester, and I'd ask them how they were doing, and of course they would say, well, I'm going to take a semester off, which was code for I have no idea what I want to do yet, and I can't keep spending all this money because I know I got to pay it back. So we've got to take a look at some relevance in our high schools at some point to create not just senior projects that say, well, go out and shadow someone and do this and do that. What's that really connected to? Let's connect it to something that we've connected the dots to because it's part of a process. One of the things that also helps us connect these dots, and I know that when we're looking at all this funding and all the opportunities we have to hopefully get some folks in school, guidance has been overlooked for years. Not because they want it to be overlooked, because we're dealing so much with social emotional in schools, that's where the emphasis is. But career guidance has really been tough to find folks to be able to spend time to do that in schools. So we got to do a better job of trying to create some positions in our schools to support our kids in career guidance. And so part of this whole process, whether you're using eDynamic or whether you're using Oregon Connections, or whether I order career guides for my region. And that sounds like a simple thing. It's amazing how well, one, they're well done, but students actually have something tangible in their hands to look at when they're talking about their career exploration opportunities, from YouScience, doing the brain games and all those things. I didn't go into depth about the brain games. You saw some of that with Zach, but that's been part of previous presentations. So anyway, that's a little bit about where we're trying to go. We need to beef up some of the work in our county ambassadors in this region. And I say beef up, I need to do a better job of leading that. And not having an expectation that people know what I'm talking about, because I assume that sometimes too much, and I need to do a better job of leading that. Because I've got some real goals I want to see in terms of creating relevance in schools. One of the things that you'll notice in schools today since COVID, our attendance rate's going down. And our numbers are going, enrollment numbers are going down. And that's not just in Eastern Oregon. Over here, I see that in some other places. I hear about it in other places. Some may be going up depending upon what you're doing in your schools. You may be doing some great things and attracting kids, but they're coming from somewhere else. So they're moving. So we've got to create relevance. And that's what I'm hoping to do in this region with what we're doing here. So that's it in a nutshell. And I'd entertain any questions or actually just hear some discussion. That'll be fine as well.
All right, I'm going to go through a few of the questions that have been elevated in the chat, and yes, I think I can get to all those questions. Okay, so ambassador for Baker County, looks like Sharon is that person that was put in there. This is a question out to everybody present and to folks that you run into. Do you want to recommend current promising programs around career exploration? Jerry pointed out that's a gap that we know exists in middle schools across the state. So what have you encountered that are quality career exploration programs, whether they've been grow your own programs, or if it's engaging with possibly a vendor, and or if it's a regional approach? If you could share those with us, that'd be great. Oh, awesome. Seeing some stuff pop in. Excellent. We would like access to, Jerry, you shared it. Now we want it. We'd like access to that video and to the slide. I think the slide deck, wow. Talk about something that can immediately go out to all those folks that are using it and adapt for their own, change the color, make it your school color, and off and running. What a great resource. That's one of the goals of this professional learning community, is that these resources could be made available. So if we could connect with Zach on that, that'd be wonderful. Kevin, I know that you said we could get the video, so thank you. If we could go one step further, that'd be awesome.
Jim, let me say a few other things.
Yes, please.
Please. I've got one school that the principal was hesitant about doing anything. He's never really gotten on board with things. I talked to him about YouScience, and I didn't think much more about it because I was pretty used to the result, knew what was going to happen. Came back through weeks later, asked him how it was going. He called me into his office and spent an hour and a half telling me how he was using YouScience. What was so exciting about it, he finally got to the point where he said, our plan, and actually they did it. The staff thought, why aren't we using this during parent-teacher conferences? Why aren't we letting parents know what their students' talents are? Because we know that a lot of vicariousness goes on when we say our kids are going to do this and oh, you should do that and da 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 da. But the truth of the matter is, they found that it was very effective if parents began to understand that. If you look at that long term, that has some real benefits when that student tries to convince their parent their senior year they don't want to take that math class. And the parent says, oh no, we know what you can do. And we know what you got the talent to do. You're going to take that math class. We know high school kids, and I've had 3 of those myself, they can flat wear you down. And then you just say, fine, do whatever you're going to do. Just don't make bad decisions. Well, that was your first bad decision. But anyway, so that's one way. Matter of fact, he told me the story where a parent came in, was made aware of what her son's talents were, and she was in tears. And she told the principal, she said, this is the first time in his high school career that I have seen him actually excited about getting up and coming to school. go back to that relevance piece. It makes sense. It makes sense. So that's one thing. And then I did something the other day that, I don't know why I did it, because sometimes I just don't know why I do things, but I just do. And I was working with a school district, and the superintendent said, well, I really like some of the ideas here, but I just don't know if my board's going to be willing to spend extra dollars on a staff member to do this particular suggestion. And I said, well, they don't understand what you're trying to do. You can go explain to them what YouScience is about and aptitude and all of that, but they don't really understand that. Perhaps what we should do is offer to provide them the test. So let's just test your school board. Let's find out what their aptitudes are. Because if you're asking them to support a decision about changing some things in your school, they need to be part of that relevance. Now, I can't tell you how many have done that yet, because I've been a little sidetracked on some things, but I'm going to swing back to that, because actually I'm going to be up there next week for an IG meeting, integrated guidance meeting, so I'll have that conversation. But those are the types of things that you can think outside the box and try to get people on board with the whole concept. And I think those are things that really solidify a program. If you get board approval, done, they're not going to question it, and then maybe it's easier to get that staff member that you're looking for. So anyway, some other thoughts I had.
So I'm going to jump on the question that was just populated in the document. So whoever the anonymous raccoon is, what YouScience has said right now is the extension that they are providing is any adult in a building. So any staff member and any related staff member. So if there's a partner of a teacher that wants to take, and all the staff, all the adults in the building. So if I'm going to use Crestwell Middle School, every human being that works in Crestwell Middle School and those nearly attached to them, right? So the sons, daughters, nieces, nephews, husbands, wives, partners of those people working in that building. YouScience has been great and said, yes, go do it, right? Like create that community value around it. We've had conversation with Georgia. There are districts in Georgia where they have YouScience night, like FAFSA night, and that's where this comment came in, I believe. And parents of the students also have access to it. And why they do is Georgia legislative body pays for every Georgia citizen to have access to YouScience. So the whole state is fully funded. But then the districts then make it available and help the parents get into it, and they help the businesses get into it. So YouScience night is a festival night where it's a career expo where folks come with all of their learnings, and it's really created a tremendous amount of synergy. They're actually investing billions of dollars in new community college trade centers in Georgia based on YouScience results from middle high school parent engagement. In addition, all their community college students take it as well. We will ask the question of YouScience, how might that look and how might that feel for us locally? They've been very generous. Jerry brought up the question about school boards statewide, and YouScience said, yes, any leader in education that you want to have take it, let them know. Jerica said, send me their email, send me their name. We will get them on there. So we know we can do that right away. The question came up, and I'm going to go quick so we can get lots of questions and answers in. Summer school, out of school time groups, can they use this also? YouScience has said yes. So for this pilot project, if you can show a group that is working in an out of school time, and those students are participants in our public school system, they will create a school. I'll use Lane ESD as an example. They have, I think there's 11 middle schools that are putting kids together in one place or space for 4 weeks this summer. Those kids are going to be put into a quote unquote summer titled group. When they go back to their individual schools, they carry their access to YouScience with them. In fact, they have access to it for 10 years. Let's imagine Jimmy goes to middle school summer camp, has access to it, goes back to my middle school. My middle school doesn't use it, but I become a 9th grader. I open up my YouScience, it'll say, hey, do you want to take the high school version now? And over the next 10 years, I have access to all that information, all that career exploration elements that are available in there as a student. So talk to us if you working in a school, in a district, in a region, or you work with an out of school time or a summer school program, get a hold of myself or Jerica, and we will help you coordinate that opportunity. E-dynamic learning. Buzz has shared the catalog. We've also put it in the link here. There, because of the work of Jerry and others in the state, eDynamic, we've done a vetting of eDynamic, and we will be leaning into a pilot project with eDynamic and some other digital curriculum resources, so that a middle school, where we talk about trying to be innovative, if a middle school needs that support to create more career exploration opportunities, we will have a pilot project rolling out with the ESSER funds as part of the entire career connected learning package. So we will keep you informed. You will be notified through regional coordinator STEM hubs, the comprehensive counseling listserv, the career exploration listserv. So if you've had any information from us before, you will get information moving forward on those pilot projects, which will kick off in the fall. Jerry, which career guide do you invest in and distribute? I know there's several out there. If there's one in particular or several, if you could provide us with that. And right now there's 3 community colleges looking at using YouScience, and the question has moved forward about making that available to all of our community college students statewide for 2 years. Additionally, there are some adult programs. Head Start of Lane County is doing a pilot project with the adults who have children in Head Start, using that as a conversation for them to move, to jump the gap of benefits, as it were. So where they are currently in a financial situation that leaves them in the classification of poverty, how can they take YouScience, use that? Lane County is supporting their educational growth with scholarship opportunities at a variety of institutions, so that take the aptitude, the brain games, find out where your skills and interests lie, apply for scholarship, and move into additional supports to move and jump the gap out of poverty. So some things like that. So concerns around using digital learning platforms. So I guess the best way to think about it is in terms of eDynamic, how we are discussing it from ODE's viewpoint is that it's not a replacement for that teacher contact. It's not putting them into an online source. It's basically getting the curriculum in digital format, not putting them into an online class that is supported outside of where they are and who they are. It has, and others have, quite a bit of work in the SEL components. There are lots of accessibility things that have been figured into. There are reading assistants, there are language supports, there's lots of the look and the feel is very universal, and supports what we are trying to achieve in terms of equity and SEL supports for our students in the state. Okay. Yes. Possible vision CTE teachers using that platform in already existing classes? Yes. These are questions that, yep, everybody's kind of leaning into it, right? With the same focus and energy. Awesome. Let's open it up for questions. Ask them out loud, put them in the chat, put them in the document. You've got lots of cool folks in the room. Ryan Robin and Amy Lukens are at Southern Oregon. They've been leading a lot of YouScience work in that region. Kevin Purnell is one of the district ambassadors. Buzz from eDynamic. You've heard from Jerry. Gene Aiken has worked to build up what we really know as the comprehensive school counseling programs in the state out of Oregon State University. A huge advocate for the work of counselors and career and college mentors. And then everyone else that is here, jump in. Let's have a conversation.
I was hoping maybe, Jim, that, and I really don't want to put Kevin on the spot, but he's used to it. Maybe he can talk a little bit about his role in what he does as a county ambassador. I mean, he's comfortable in the sewing room. I don't know.
He's a pretty quiet guy. I don't know.
Yeah, you must know a different Kevin than I know.
Yeah. I moved out of the sewing room, so that's okay, because my wife needed to sew. Jerry, she's got quilts to finish. So, yeah, my role as county ambassador, I work with Malheur County, a little over half of the schools in Malheur County, and then all of the schools in Grant County. And my job has been to try to connect with the school ambassadors, and really the school ambassadors for most of the schools are the school principal or the school counselor, right? And with our situation, a lot of our schools are tiny enough that the superintendent and the principal are the same person, And sometimes they're even the counselor, because most of them don't have a counselor. So trying to help them, reach out to them, and give them any resources I can to help them get started, and any encouragement. It was a slow go at first, but like Jerry said, there was one school that was really, really hesitant for quite some time, and you make the trip a couple times and get over there and sit down and visit with them, and he decided to test his staff. He said, well, look, I'm going to give this to my staff. We're going to talk about it. And next thing I know, I'm getting an email saying, man, it is just awesome. He said, I'm walking down the hall and I can hear my teachers talking to, their 8th graders and their high schoolers. And they're saying, hey, what about this part of the test? What do you think about this? And I was surprised at the careers it came up with, and the teachers and the kids are connecting because they're taking this, they're playing the same games, right? And so that was pretty neat to get that response. And then just, what in probably the last week, I pester schools a little bit, to try to encourage them to do this, because we can find a lot of reasons to not get things done. We just don't have the time to make it happen. But when you try to show them the relevance, they start to figure it out after they've heard from you numerous times. And so just in the last week, I've had 4 different school ambassadors, school liaisons that have contacted me, said, hey, we're going to give this. Here's what our plan is. Can you get me Zach's, slide deck as well, right? And so really what I'm trying to do now is put together a notebook for the schools so that they don't have to try to go on the website and find all those follow-up activities, which are there, the lesson plans and whatnot. I'm trying to put that into a notebook for them so that they have it readily available, and then tell them where the links are. But for some of those folks, they've got a lot going on, and then to try to search the YouScience page and try to find all those resources, it can be a little daunting. So I'm putting together a notebook for them so that they can have, and I'm hoping that, for those that I'm making a trip over next week to help them administer it and go over the results with their kids. So just my job is to help them out in any way I can and give them as much assistance so that it doesn't become so daunting that they don't want to do it, right? So try to leave them without an excuse to do it. So to not do it, right? So anyhow, that's my role, and a lot of them have been jumping on board the last few weeks and decided, hey, we really need to do this. So anyhow, that's it.
One, thank you for doing that, Kevin. That sharing and caring, or caring and sharing that you're doing in terms of like collecting and putting those things together. Amy and Brian and Regina Childs from High Desert are doing similar things for their regions. And so we're grateful anytime you all can share that. We're kind of in the collection process right now of those types of things that can be packaged up for that fall implementation for the many, many schools that are going to jump in and join us. So for the data geeks out there, this started with 26 schools last February. We have over 168 schools that have brain games that have been delivered in their buildings. We have 280 plus schools signed up to do this in the fall. The original pilot project, the dream was 60 schools. So again, anybody you know of that you want to share this information with and access to, please do so. Let us know. Any questions of Kevin?
I'd like to mention something.
Amy, please go.
Yeah. So I was at ACTE too, Jerry, and we got to talk a little bit, and you were talking about a paradigm shift about aptitudes instead of interests. And when we were there, you also talked about the paradigm shift of CTE not being an elective. And I think we're really part of a groundswell of CTE moving to the center of curriculum and what students do in school, as opposed to, oh yeah, we'll take woodshop if we feel like it, or something like that. And as far as connecting the dots, we've heard a couple of ideas like Oregon Connections and e-dynamic learning, especially great for rural schools. And then also we've seen where when middle schools are working with their high schools and the high schools define pathways, even to the point of creating a sheet that has the actual pathways. So when you have your middle schoolers do the YouScience and then they get the results, and then they go to their forecasting and get their classes set up for high school, then they've got a good idea of what direction they're going to go in. And I mean, even to the point where they can take a piece of paper home and show their parents, look, you know, I'm interested in this. These are the classes I can take if there's that POS, program of study at the high school. You know, that's not all schools do have that, like Jerry was pointing out. A lot of our schools have ag and maybe not other ones, but that's another way to connect the dots and really make it a process, not an event. So not just have the middle schoolers take it and then kind of forget about it, or maybe they remember it when they're 25 and they're in a career they don't like, and they're like, oh wait, maybe I better look at those results again. But so I just wanted to throw that in there.
Thank you very much. And thank you for all the great work you're doing in your region, supporting all those folks that are so very well engaged.
You know, what's really interesting, Amy, I appreciate your comments. And by the way, Brian put in a video from Lost River that was actually, it's really good. It's about 3 minutes long. I think I put one in from Henley, and I also put in a link to your career guides that you asked for.
Thank you very much.
I'm hoping that those work, but you just consider the source. Anyway, what I would tell you is that the paradigm shift is really sort of interesting. I like your term groundswell. I'm working with the integrated guidance piece around the states. I only have 5 of those to attend because I have 5 ESDs in my region. So I'm going to all of those. And one of the things that's becoming evident to me when I look at that integrated guidance and braiding all the funds together and this, that, and the other is how important a role CTE should have in schools, because it's connected to academics, or should be connected to academics. It's hard to separate STEM from CTE. It's science, it's technology, it's engineering, math. You can't do anything without that in CTE. So it's time to really recognize CTE for what it's worth, and what it is worth is opportunities for young people to explore and to connect practically all the other things they're learning in school that forever has been silo driven. How dare the math department talk to a building construction teacher or welding teacher or whatever? It just doesn't happen. They go their own routes. And that's changing. I'm seeing that changing more and more now. And as schools get excited about YouScience and aptitude and learning more about even themselves, I think you'll see a shift in a different direction. CTE is not just an elective. It's part of the big plan to help young people decide what to do with their lives. So I appreciate those comments.
I'm going to connect 2 dots for folks. Thank you, Jerry. YouScience, the test directions are in Spanish, but the test itself does not require a lot of deciphering. It's a lot of imagery game work. And so our folks that are working with English second language learners are saying it's working just fine. They're finding ways to communicate the directions. And once the students are in the test, in fact, if you watch the Lost River video, actually addresses some of that for some of those kiddos that are in that language learning situation. Lynn's asking a question about how to report the information. And Lynn, I want to connect you with Amy Lukens, because she has literally gone through every report tab in YouScience. Like I have not met a single person yet who has with fidelity gone into such detail. Like I don't think there's a single button in YouScience she has not poked at, prodded, opened, and figured out. So Amy, Lynn's trying to figure out how to communicate the reports to parents in a visually exciting way that will really engage the parent as well. So this is a great question, Lynn, and would like to work and create some opportunities. So if anybody else has found a way to communicate to parents, that is a fantastic question. Thank you for elevating that.
Sure, Lynn, I'll be in touch.
Yeah. The question around English language learners and translations, YouScience has elevated the test. Their programming department is now at the top of their list, is converting the testing into full Spanish edition. They have, since Oregon got engaged with them last year and pushed, they have converted. The results are now available for students in Spanish. So the kiddos can get their results back in Spanish language, and they continue to make additional efforts to create greater equity with regards to language learners, multilingual learners and speakers, and as well with other students experiencing disabilities. We're having lots of good feedback from folks, kids working with students who experience disabilities, that they're finding, especially in these one-on-one areas where kids are really finding some connections. Educators are finding ways to elevate their skills and aptitudes and celebrate that. And so there's some great development there as well. And we continue to ask for more and have been getting some decent and quality response from YouScience on those things. So if there's a need for translation of any document in YouScience into languages that will support your communities, please reach out to myself or Jerica. We have partners at Southern Oregon and High Desert who are helping translate items, and excuse me, not High Desert, but High Desert and Malheur ESD, who are helping support translation services up to 98 different languages in the state. So please let us know what you need. Am I missing anything? Can I open it up for folks to ask questions? I know we're nearing the end of the time. This guy always stays on later, so if you want to hang out and keep talking, I love this stuff. So good to see so many faces and to meet new people. Thank you for the great questions. The ambassador for Southern Oregon. So Jerry has set up a very unique situation over in his region that is unique to his area. He's using funding from one of his sources to create that opportunity. But in Southern Oregon, please reach out to Amy Lukens, Carla Clark, or Brian Robin. They are experts in this work and have been very generous with supporting. Can CTE teachers, this is a cool story. North Bend High School. One CTE teacher took it, gave it to his culinary arts kids. The next week, the other 5 CTE teachers were calling, asking for access to their kids. 2 weeks later, the principal is calling, asking for access to her entire school. A week after that, the community college, Southwestern Oregon Community College, calling, asking, how do we get it? Because now we want our CTE kids at the community college to have it. Literally just going gangbusters. Similar situation, Harbor Lights in Brookings, 7th grade social studies teacher brought it into a career exploration component that she wanted to incorporate into her classroom. And now the whole school is taking it. And now Brookings High School is taking it. And now Brookings High School is hiring and putting FTE behind new program of study for their students as a response. Henley High School tells a similar story. Brian, 3 new programs of study opening up for kids based on 2 new programs of study, 3rd one in development. So, and that's when that with Fidelity, Engage Middle School, Engage High School, have the conversations, have the adults take the brain games, watch the kids get excited. I think one of the very first stories we heard was Jerry early on. You'll correct me if I'm wrong. Was it an athletic director calling you to say, I had to pull the bus over because kids were so loud in the back, but they were all talking and going on about their YouScience results? And am I remembering correctly?
Heard that story, but it wasn't from me. I didn't.
Wasn't you? Okay.
Story.
But it happened somewhere in the state. Had to pull the bus over, sit and chat with the kids. Why are you so loud? Well, we're excited about what we're going to become when we grow up. So questions. We got lots of nice emails in the chat. Anything that's elevated for anybody that we can discuss or put on a work list for ourselves?
One of the things that I'd like to at least look at, because I know that we have had these conversations with our folks, our community college folks here in Southern Oregon, is about getting them access to the new transition specialists that the state of Oregon is funding at our community college partners, specifically around the transitions between high school and community college. We want to give them access to it. And I know that we're in the process of hiring those people. And I know at every community college around the state, those people are being funded. But that I see that as one really good way of getting that connection between our community colleges back down into our high school. I love to hear about, community colleges now taking it, because I think that community college staff would be amazing if they could all take it. So we're working on that. But if you and Beth, as you're talking with folks and more of these meetings, Jim, if you could just support that, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's
Jim, I would
4:59.
be happy to talk to anyone later if they want to ask questions, or get some general idea of what high schools really could be re-envisioned to look like. It's sort of a lot of fun to think about that.
So Jerry, maybe it would be good to talk to you about this like separately.
That's what I
Yeah,
mean.
so, you know, I'm literally filling out the paperwork for Baker. And I want to do this for the Innovation High School. I think it'd be a perfect fit. And maybe just, you know, picking your brains about like, where do I go with that?
Absolutely. I think your situation and a lot of programs like yours are ideal for this. I mean, these young people have sort of gone in some circles and struggled with the education they've had up to that point, and they're looking for something different.
Mhm.
And so that's what I really like about what you've got there available to you. I'd love to sit and visit about possibility.
Okay, awesome.
So we'll schedule some time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Mhm.
Did we miss anybody's questions? Okay. Yeah, Amy, that's been resonating with me almost the entire time too, is that the insight reports, when you walk away with having a student population take this and you take the results and look at them, what we are finding is it washes away gender and racial biases. That the data from some of our schools showing that it is absolutely equal aptitude in boys and girls in computer science, in engineering, in health sciences, right? And so to elevate that as a conversation internally with schools and to elevate it as a conversation adult with student is really a game changer. So we've had, if you get into career exploration running notes, there's links to previous recordings and previous conversations. We've had an equity conversation. YouScience's how to nuts and bolts does a walkthrough and shows you like national data, regional data, some Georgia data, and so forth. So great. We'll honor everybody's time. If you need to head out, thank you so much for joining us. Jerry, thank you so very much for a wonderful share today, for everybody's participation in this. I'm going to stop recording.